Do ba do 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 beep ba do do ba do ba do boop dee boop 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 boop. Hello. Thanks for tuning in, anybody that tuned in. Here I am again, continuing my work on the Horus Ascended model. Adding my own music to this stream again. I'm in the mood to paint the cape, or at least begin the cape. So that's what I'm going to kind of focus on here. Just gonna. So for this, I've already got some colors on my palette. One of my favorite colors, Panzer Ace's Periscope. And then I'm using Evil Red from Vallejo, which is kind of a violety color. One of the things I like to do is add, I'm going to get a little bit of a darker purple color here, get some blue in my shadow zone. That's how I always start with these pieces. Get a nice big brush and get into some of the shadow areas. You can see I kind of maybe can't see because of the reflection, but big cape, so I'm going to make sure I got a lot of this. I'm going to make sure it leans a little bit more on the red side of things. I love this brush, but it's been damaged a lot. So first round, I'm just going to kind of be a little messy as I go through this. I'm going to get it all up inside, down in these cracks. And then I'll come back over with my reds as I come through. I'm going to go ahead and do purplish in here, all the edges. I did paint the metallics off stream yesterday. Not all the metallics, but a lot of the gold, just to keep some forward momentum going on that note. I used P3 Blighted Gold, and there's a lot of detail. There's a few areas I left unpainted in the gold that I'm going to go back in with a different metallic, maybe a silver. I haven't decided yet. I've liked the P3 metallics. I still use G-Dub metallics. I've just liked the P3 stuff, and it has lasted a little bit longer than some of my other ones. So to avoid purchasing new paints, I've just kind of used what I have available. I have a couple of P3 paints that haven't seen a lot of use. So what I'm going to do is come in pretty messily, and then I'm going to use some of those same airbrush tricks to smooth some of this out once I get into it. But for now, I'm just going to layer in. I have no new fun and interesting stories since yesterday. I wish I did, but I've done nothing but paint. I did recently find a Star Wars RPG, pen and paper RPG system that these guys have been doing that matches the Dungeons and Dragons, what is it, 5e or 5th edition, and I've been looking over that and may do a game later this week on this weekend. It's a little bit hard to learn all the extra rules. There are some really awesome RPGs that I would love to play from Warhammer from back in the day. They had a game called Dark Heresy. They had one called Only War. One of the reasons I'm kind of doing this section more by brush is to avoid getting these colors all over the wolf pelt. So I may still get some splash on it when I do my blending that I'm going to attempt, and my darkening. So ultimately I'm going to go red with the cape, but part of this is if you watch a lot of people, a lot of these guys that are way more experienced than myself, you'll see that they'll take getting different colors in the shadows is something that a lot of these guys do, and I really like the effect that it brings to stuff. And I'm not working off of anybody's inspiration currently. This is all made up as I go, which is different. Usually when I'm painting these, I try to find some inspirations. I've just been kind of making it up as I go, and so that's why I'm bouncing around a little bit today, going to the cape, while I let some other ideas bubble in my head for later. I'm going to leave these areas that I know are not going to be purple white, save a little paint. It's also just a little bit speedier. Don't have to cover everything as I do this. So from here, I'm gonna just kind of add some more of my reddish color in, and while I'm still wet, come in, and if it blends, great. If it doesn't, no big deal. One of the nice things about knowing that you're going to go back in and smooth things out with an airbrush is it allows you to kind of move quicker, be a little messier, and get the first bits down without a whole lot of concern. So I have let the underside stuff dry more than I probably should have. I should have probably done one side of the cloak at a time, but it's still okay. So in here I'm going to make sure I leave some of the shadow area. It's pure dark, purpley color. I'm going to come in, start tying in a little bit of these shapes. Really want my deepest shadows to end up in this purpley, the really dark first layer. And then even from here, if I get a little bit on the white, there's a little bit of a difference that happens when you paint over a dark color over a light color. It'll be more vibrant over the white than it would be over the purple. But it's okay, because I'm going to come in with an unmixed variant here. So I'm going to make my move now to the more robust red. This is actually, I'm going to jump up. So this would be a different route than a lot of people might take. This is this Vallejo game color that I like, gory red. This will help me as I bring in some of these really vibrant colors in here over the white. A little water. So what this can do is I can always come back in. I know where my kind of brightest is, and I can work my way back down to the darker while knowing this is all just so this gives me a little idea of where I can blend some of these colors in, and this red gets nice and vibrant over the white. I will be coming back in here and which, you know, probably could have come in with my airbrush and been careful enough to get some of these areas. The nice thing about having some of this wet blending in is down in here in these wetter areas is I can start changing my tones a little bit by wet blending in this red. And then so some of these I may end up having to come back in and dark line, but for the time being this is more edge highlighting and which it's red's a hard color to work from sometimes, because when you think about doing like your highlights and stuff, some people just add white, some people add yellow, which goes toward orange. There's a lot of different ways, and I found when I really want the bright to pop, I try to not do any, I try to put it on a white and then come in with my airbrush if I need to and kind of add a few coats to it to really make it pop. Sometimes I absolutely 100% fail in getting these white to get highlighted, since it's so from here I'm going to take some of my old color and kind of just run it down in between the meeting point, and I can always bring some red back in, but by doing this on the wet blending I can kind of mush these colors together a little bit before they dry, and get a little violet in between color, and then I can grab a little bit of the red, do the same thing back, just kind of spread it out. If there's any spots where I kind of lose a little bit of that intensity, I can always add more layers of the red. So get a little violent in here, yeah. Start doing some little streaks and patterns as I go in, little lines, so that if I decide to do some glazing in here, these lines will they'll cross over and it'll blend better than just doing a straight line. So there we go. So you can see I'm starting to lose a little bit of my red intensity in some of these areas when I use a little bit too watered down. Here it looks a little pink. Didn't get enough pigment on there. Let that dry a little. Come back over in this area. Come back over a top where I was wet blending. It's dried a little bit. Give me some brush patterns and just kind of bring my intensity back out. Come back on this side, add a little bit more intensity in here. See, I lost a little bit in here. It looks a little brown. It's usually because of watered down. I've noticed for myself when I water things a little bit too much and I'm doing like red over blue, it'll go brown instead of purple. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I'm going to add a little bit more of my gory red. So part of this also is it's always going to be aimed when you're looking at it. People are generally going to see it like this. So deciding where to put your highlights is usually like just to add to what people are actually going to see. Down in this area in here, it won't get seen as much, but I can let the shadows go to the purple and then just kind of worry about my reddish tones. And then real life shadows will augment what I've done. And then I'll airbrush smooth it anyways. Come all the way up in here. Give it some fabric patterns. I'm going to come along in here. So this area I'm going to actually water down a little bit. So this would be kind of a little bit of a glaze just to get a little bit of, let's add a little bit more red in here. Call it heavy glazing. I don't know what you want to call it. Come in here. A little watered down. Then I can pick up some of this purple, do the same kind of thing along here. Then just wet blend that heavy glaze here. Grab a little more of my purple color and then just kind of continue into the shadows with this kind of dirty wet blend. Dirty glaze wet blend. I don't know what to call it. So once you get to that point, you can kind of dragging the brush toward where you want the pigments to be. That's always one of those glaze tips that I failed to understand. So even that's not a bad little blend. Going to come in, do a little bit of the same purple blending in here. Kind of can be a little messier. It doesn't have to be gorgeous because it's a dirty wet blend, letting it play within the colors. Go deeper. Always dragging that pigment toward the area that you want it. I can come on over to this side, do a little of the same. Over the red toward the center. This also makes your blue areas a little bit nicer, your purplish areas a little nicer as well. So here you can see it's kind of dried out, a nice little reddish tone. Come in here, add another layer of this vibrant red in the areas that could use a little more. And then another option would be at the very end, come in with an airbrush over the areas that I'd like to create my intensity in and just hit it with a little bit of white. And then bring like a red ink over the top. I want to really make it pop out. It's a lot of, I'm attempting to get better at the glazing side of things. And some people act like it's a simple. And it can be. It's just not something I enjoy doing, but I've been trying to get better at it. Some people do it without even thinking, which I am jealous of. Me, I have to legitimately consider it. Okay, come back in here with a really thick red. If you notice, I'm not watering down most of this. I'm trying to keep it pretty thick, full of pigment. Okay. So from here, There's options for getting some lines in, because you kind of want some lines to be visible here. You want some shadow, but because I'm going to use my airbrush here in a minute, probably primarily on the top side. So trying to think where else I might put these colors. I think maybe I can add some of this darker purpley, add a little red, get that same tone. I can come up in here and we can do his sheath for the sword. I'm going to paint a bunch of it, not sure where I want that detail to be. His little knife. These are all going to be red, so I can actually come in here, take some of this red and make myself a kind of a base coat area that's not too off. He always has kind of reddish leather, so none of these have to be super, don't got to worry about them yet. I'm just getting them out of the black color, or the grayish color that I had on them. These little leather bits down in here. This tends to be how I work, is if I focus too much on one area, you end up watching paint dry. So if I have other colors I can use, or other places I can use the same color, I'll just float over while I wait for things to dry up. Wish I had really interesting stories to tell today. Still in the film industry, hoping for the strike to end, along with all the other thousands of people that have, are out of work and have no control over it. It's a very humbling thing. Last time it was like this would have been the shutdown, where even if you wanted to work on a movie, there was nothing happening. So yeah, I don't want to talk about shutdown. Everybody gets fired up about stuff like that. Not everybody, lots of people. So, giving a base coat to all these leather bits. Buddy of mine's been collecting Legos. I mean, he didn't just start, he's been collecting for a long time. But he loves the Harry Potter stuff, so he got a bunch of the new Harry Potter things that have come out, and it cracks me up. I love Legos too. But here we go. See, it's dark enough of a red that it kind of looks like a brown. It's really nice. Okay, so for this airbrush intensity, pardon me, got to grab some Salmon Rose from Vallejo. This is going to seem like the strangest thing ever to anybody that might watch this. but it pays off. So get a little water, get it to flow well. So first off, I'm going to come in here, give myself a nice edge. I may not have put enough salmon roe on my palette, but that's okay. So from here, I'm going to be messy. Get all down in this area. Try not to kill all my patterns. What you don't want is too thick. You don't want it to turn chalky. So what I'm doing now is really separating out some highlights on my cape. So I'm going to make sure I stay in frame. Get some patterns along here, just get some interesting textures. I'll come back to the center point in a second. So I'm going to hit all these. I'm actually going to come in here where the darkness is and just give me some highlight edging. Going to come along here. I'm not going to edge highlight everything, just trying to make it seem relatively realistic to what it might look like. And you know, sometimes this may not be the best option for what you're trying to achieve. But this seemed like a great spot to do this. Okay. I'm not going to forget the underside of the cape here. I'm going to come in here. I'm not going to get rid of all my dark areas. Trying to leave some of this shadow in here. Grab the imagined folds that are here. It's okay if it's textured. Won't go as deep with this. It's okay if I stipple a little bit. For the moment, I'm just creating some volumes that I'm going to mess with the airbrush. This is where I can get my red intensity. Could do this by hand very easily. Or not easily, but you can do this by hand if you wanted to. It just takes a lot of glazing. I like this process. It feels like I am achieving things. Let's see, come along here. Do that. Then I'm gonna hit this side. under here. Phenomenon. Do, 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 do. Okay. Weirdest process. So come in and get a couple little areas in here. Do that. And then with this back area, I'm going to kind of go a little bit of an opposite direction. I'm not covering all of the red, I'm making sure there's some red between me and Le Purpura. Then I'm going to leave the top how it is, and I'll come back in this side, do the same thing. Feels pretty good. Gonna add a little in here. Okay, apologies for the noise. Airbrush incoming. So I have had this airbrush for a while. I've used a couple other ones. Oh man, this is going to be embarrassing if I have clogged my airbrush right before using it. No, I can see through my hole. So, there we go. That's what I get for not double checking my tools before I go on to stream. But hey, you know, that's how it goes. So I've been using this Sotar 2020 for quite some time. I really love it. It's got a nice tight stream. I'm currently checking to see if I have a clog. I think a lot of people shy away from the airbrushes because they seem intimidating. But once you work at it for a little while, no clog. It may just be dry. Totally clean. That hole looks totally clean. Look clean there. Clean there. I started out with the Badger 105. This is not a none of these companies support me or send me free things. But I have no problem saying I recommend them. If you did want to send me free stuff, I would not complain. Because, you know, free stuff is free stuff. I like the Satara because it has a much tighter, I feel like I have more control on it. I know it's all affected by the needle in the tip, But even when I had the same matching stuff in another brush in the Badger 105, I still felt like I had better control with this one. I always recommend people start off with a generic, cheaper, which this isn't that expensive anyways. Not used any of the Infinity stuff. I've never used the more expensive brands. I'm pretty satisfied. Again, if they want to give me one to try out, I'll happily attempt it. As you can see, I make a mess. It's interesting. That's where my clog is somehow. Looked pretty clean, but I will do my due diligence and pull it back out again and test it again. Oh my, that is where my let's see here. It's interesting to get your clogs further in the back. Oh, hey, I tuned in to watch you paint. Oh, you're having to clean your tools because at some point you did a poor job. Interesting. It's still... I don't think I've ever had this area get clogged up at all. I think that'll work now. If not, shame on me. Downsides to having an airbrush is sometimes you think you cleaned it and you really didn't. I'm already at 42 minutes on the stream and I don't feel like I've accomplished hardly anything. Probably won't go as long as I did yesterday. See if I can get this intensity on the cape, this process done. There we go. I didn't airbrush for a long time, but I have found it to be a fun and relaxing addition to the painting array. Sometimes it's just really fun to put on the headphones and airbrush some stuff. I don't tend to do enough that I need to mask up. Most of what I'm doing is pretty simple. Interesting day for painting. You never know. Sometimes your airbrush just doesn't like you. There we go. Never saw any junk come out. Never saw anything. Okay, so I'm going to throw in a little paint thinner and a drop or two of water, just because. I'm going to take my salmon roe. Actually, I've got some on the palette still. This is going to be my, get my airbrush brush, take up what I got left, throw it in here. There is a level of getting used to this. You don't want this to be too watered down, too thick. Too thick, clog your stuff. Too thin, and it goes everywhere. So I always test. You can see I've got my what you don't want is the spider webbing effect. So basically, I'm gonna come in now and I'm just gonna smooth out the salmon roe that I put down. Biggest thing I need to do is make sure I don't get it on my lovely armor. And you just got to be patient when you're doing this. It's okay if you get a little overflow or a little overlap on your purple. Every once in a while you definitely got to check, make sure you're not jammed up. It's watered down enough, I shouldn't be. It's very interesting to me that I'll be going fine and then all of a sudden my airbrush will feel jammed up for some reason. Thank goodness nobody's watching. Oh wait, Tim, if you're there, I love you. The other thing you got to check out, make sure your needle isn't gathering debris. There we go. know what is going on with you, buddy. Now I'm spitting too much. There would be an example of too much. Okay, come back, let that dry. Sorry for the no talking, trying to work out these issues with my... Oh, that would be a problem. If I'm out of paint already. That's probably it at this point. Okay, well, add a little more thinner. Thinner will get rid of a little bit of that. Then I go straight to the pot. What is it, Dirty Pots? I forget. Next Level Painting used to have some really fun sayings when he would do his airbrushing. Normally I would do this a little bit faster, but you know, the more you learn. Knowing is half the battle. Very, very exhausting when I'm gonna add a little bit more paint to this. Feel like I'm spider webbing. You could use straight airbrush paints if you had the similar color. You could have gone with a white if you'd wanted to. I just don't like to do straight off white. I'd rather go with something closer to what I'm painting. Slow and steady wins the race. Too much, that's okay. I think it would be better for most people to see that even the pros have times where they're not happy with what they're doing. I'm currently getting a lot more than I really want, but it's okay. It'll take a little bit longer to dry here. All we ever see on the tutorials online is 100% successes. I think it would be good. It'd be fun to do an amalgam of all of my failures. How to not use the airbrush. How to completely ruin a model. So currently I have avoided getting this on any of the armor, and I'm getting nervous about doing that. I've just been making sure that I don't aim a little spider web. It's okay. So there we go. I mean, that's decent. It's not the greatest. Come back in here, do a little bit. Okay. Good thing I hadn't planned on doing an enormous amount of airbrushing today. I use both water and airbrush cleaner to do my cleanup on this stuff. I see different guys have different methods. I do an amalgam of everything. Whatever gets me clean. Andy, you may be saying, why did you put all that paint on there if you're just going to come back with the brush? Well, undercoats matter, and figuring out where I want the patterns matters. And it's very hard to paint with your brush in large areas after you airbrush. So, one thing I always make sure to do with my airbrush is put a little clean water in there after I do the cleaner. And do a last little thing. So, here's what we'll do. We have a couple options. So, one option is to go with inks. Inks are pretty. I got a magenta ink here. I'll put them on my palette for you to see before I do this. And then I usually have a red ink somewhere. I also have a violet ink. Let's see. Red ink. Okay. So, what this can do for you, which I probably won't use the purple, but you have on there kind of the color you're going to get. And this is a nice vibrant orangey red. Maybe we can go in here under the level. So, if you were doing this normally, see if I can paint across here, the white is now very vibrant. When you airbrush on, you can do this vibrancy a lot smoother. And then you can also blend in. So some of these areas aren't going to blend in as well. You can also use contrast paints. I may add in a little contrast paint, but for now, I'm going to go with this red ink because, you know, even if I make a mistake on this and redo it, hey, all the better. People can see sometimes you make mistakes and you have to come back in. Do it all over again. So here you can see me coming in, still struggling. See there, I'm getting a really vibrant red. Usually I would prefer to go a little slower, but for whatever reason, oof. I do not know what is causing this, and it's frustrating. Let's see if I have last resort a little paint built up on the front, but I mean that shouldn't be causing this issue. It's so minimal. See everybody, technology doesn't fix everything. Okay. Let's go back in. We'll try some more. So come in here. Get a nice red. That's super red, vibrant. The other bonus to this is because you've sprayed the salmony white color, salmony white color around a little bit, it has blended things in. It's a good thing I hadn't planned on going too long, because this airbrush issue is driving me insane. Living in the danger zone. Currently I have no needle in there because I'm tired of this issue. So as you can see, when you go over the purple, it just kind of darkens it up a little bit. It doesn't, it helps blend. So this would be not the best perfect example of how I have done this in the past, but it's still working. So a lot of forgiveness at this time. Thank you, airbrush, for... Biggest thing I'm trying to do is avoid getting on my already painted armor. Pretty vibrant. Come back in, do a little bit more now that the airbrush seems to be cooperating a little bit. There we go. We've kind of worked our way through. So, after the fact, this is when you can come in with, where did I put my violet? Well, let's not. Let's go with a, there it is. Let's put this violet ink in. So there's a little bit of purple. So what I can do, little trick, thank you, Aaron Lovejoy. You can use Payne's Gray, purple, so you can see. This is where I can build back a little bit of my shadow area. You just got to be real careful not to do too much. But this is another spot where you can blend your shadows back in. Without, you just got to be really careful. And if you do mess up, not a huge ordeal. You can always fix these issues, but it's better if you don't have to. You can see me right here using very subtle small hits. This is bringing back in kind of a bluer tone to my shadows. And then in here I may be a little bit more liberal. By doing this, I really make the red pop. And I have some really deep areas in there where I couldn't get the paint into that I'm trying to darken down a little bit. Let's see, I kind of just slowly come in here, darken down the edge, and it helps me blend some of my lesser quality edge highlighting. Takes a lot of focusing at this point. There we go. So, basic gist. And then his cape in the diagram, or in the photo that I'm kind of working off of, has a fun little, it's, there's all this added detail that goes to gold. So, it is fabric gold, not metallic gold. So I will probably use very similar colors to what I would use for non-metallic metals at this point, because I'm doing a different material than normal. Shut up, compressor. There we go. have you seen I have a little extra paint on my palette? It's fine. I will use it to paint something after the stream is over because I like to reuse. But so to get this down, I'm going to grab my favorite chocolate brown. I'm not going to put too much on. So this is all this filigree that you see here. So I'm going to do what I always do, which is start with my shadowy area. And I'm going to come in, basically hit this little the filigree that goes all the way on the edge of the cape. And you know, some people are amazing and can do really awesome freehand. I have not attempted any freehand outside of some chapter symbols on some models. That's about it. It would be fun to do full freehand someday, but not now. I wonder how much freehand requires you to actually be good at drawing, because I am horrible at drawing. My daddy long leg, or my stick figures look like somebody stepped on a daddy long legs. Wow, I totally ruined that joke. Been saying it for years and I still messed it up. Man, presentation on that joke was so bad that I just don't even have anything else to say right now. That was so bad. If I do spill a little bit of brown paint on the red, it's okay. They're both warm colors, so you can come in and clean it off pretty quick. Sometimes I think this little filigree is my favorite part to paint on some models because it requires so much focus for something so tiny. But then like nobody ever really notices it, but it's like it's just kind of, it's a relaxing thing to me to paint, is to like have these details on. I'm not saying I love it, but it's kind of fun to do these parts. So here, there's an area in shadow I am not going to paint on because this goes really dark into shadow. So we'll just leave it that way. Can't even get in there, so why freak out about it? Here I can get in, so I will go ahead and add my brown in. If there's ever a spot where you're pretty much guaranteed to fail because of the position of the figure, I just move on. Lightning bolt. Okay, don't forget the underside. Same thing here. There's some areas that I cannot reach physically. So I will get the areas that I can. Most important part is getting the areas that are definitely visible. So deep back in here, it's not physically possible for me. Actually, I can get in here from this side. Thing is, though, is this area is very dark, so I don't want my... It's going to be weird if the gold is standing out against the purple, so I probably will... If I do the gold, it will be a very subtle series. Then back to the eye. This is the important part. Wonder if they modeled this in CAD. I wonder if they 3D modeled this on a computer. I'm curious. Some of these new models, I wonder sometimes if they don't want you to be able to actually paint all the detail. To me, if you can't reach it, can't paint it, you know, on this cloak, it's kind of like, could you build this entire thing piece by piece and paint it, and then, man, anybody that does that, they have my earnest respect to a certain extent. If you painted all these separate and then put it together, it's a lot of work. I've seen a few people that paint stuff on the sprues that they come on. That seems like a lot of work. I'm not interested in attempting that. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Come in with my favorite flat earth. And I already have some groundwork for where I kind of want my highlights to be down the center. So I'm going to focus my brighter color to the center of this area, matching what I've already done. Except I'll exaggerate it a little bit because that's me. I'm not going to paint the whole arrow. I'm going to stick toward the center. And if you find a little boo-boo, just bring in a little red. As I go, I know I'm going to come back and do some brighter highlights. So this is very much just getting down some tones and like always the volumes for, you know, you can take a lot of liberties doing fabric to help define, because you know you're going to do your do this more like that. Nothing out of the ordinary here. Well, okay. Seems like a pretty good place to stop for the day. If you want to, let's see, we'll zoom in real quick and you can see a little bit better diorama. Let's see. If I put... You see, red is such a hard color to do on camera. So now that I'm in front of the white piece, you can see pretty well in there. So yeah, the armor really goes darker, and that was fun. thank you, anybody that tunes into this. I'd say subscribe and like and share, except I wouldn't if I was you. So I'm not going to say that. If you do come and check it out, thanks for coming and checking it out. And I'll see you for the next stream whenever we do that. Maybe tomorrow. I don't know.